Hey, Allard. Welcome to Sweden.
Ola, yeah, it's been a while. It's second time in Sweden now.
It is?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's a shame that I haven't been here.
Well, where
Many
did
times.
you visit the last time?
Stockholm. And
Well,
it was
then you were on the wrong side of the country.
Yeah, but it was on that moment on the right side of the weather.
Well, I guess when we treat you with sun when you come to Gothenburg, it's not that bad, eh?
No, I'm actually really happy to come here because I want to, come here more often. And now with you here, it probably is a good reason. Hey, you're married to a Dutch wife, so you can visit my places and I will visit your places. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Perfect combination.
Yeah.
Next time we'll bring some warm water as well, so we can.
Yeah, that's actually what I want to do some sauna work or something, because we don't have that culture.
No.
This is something completely different from the Netherlands. So yeah, so what is it with that sauna culture of yours?
I think it comes probably from the past, and where we didn't have enough showers and stuff. It was part of making yourself clean, and you had a sauna, and then you went out. And,
So it's sterilization of your body.
Go to the sauna and then jump into the lake.
Yeah. Yeah, well, actually, that's quite good. It has some really good health implication as well. The cold water and then the switching from warm to cold.
Yeah, and it's really nice.
Yeah, nice.
So next time, ice bath, sauna.
I.
What did you say? February?
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I'm in for it. I'm in for it.
You're in for it.
Yeah.
Without the wetsuit.
Yeah. That's always a saying that I have. I'll go swimming only with a wetsuit. So even in the summer, it's like 20 degrees Celsius in the Netherlands, which is quite good. You can go surf.
Yeah.
You can go surfing in your shorts, but
I heard you just came back.
yeah,
From some warm water.
yeah, Australia. Well, it was not warm water, but it was warm weather.
Warm weather. Oh yeah.
So I had to wear a wetsuit. I had a full suit 2 millimeters, but so yeah, I felt like a pussy. And you know why? Because there's all these
Mind the
Aussies-
language.
Oh, sorry, man. Hey, but all these Aussies were just surfing there in their shorts, and the water was not really warm. So I was like, okay, these are probably descendants of convicts 200 years ago, and I'm probably saying something that's not allowed to as well. But they're strong people. Now it was really nice. I went there for CHG.
Yep.
We did a couple of events, was really happy to spread the word, the sustainability word, and it was quite successful.
How is the perception on sustainability and the interest in sustainability on that side of the world?
Yeah, it's. So I was actually quite surprised. So they really want to do and make that sustainability move, but you really notice that they're like, I think 5 to 10 years behind on what's happening in Europe.
Yeah.
And that is actually, I think, an advantage. Because in Europe, of course, we've been moving along a lot further with sustainability. And also from a circular economy perspective. So, yeah, I think in Europe, when we really become interested in sustainability, first it was from reaction modes. And now it's more proactive. And how can we harness the value of sustainability into business value? And in Australia, they're still in, okay, let's do the certifications. Let's make sure that we obey the sustainability laws. And so they're very in the reactive mode.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that is accounting. So this is a general impression. So there's also, of course, their first movers and are ahead with their sustainability approach. But the average is that they're still kind of in the certification mode, and we have to do this and that. And they don't see it yet as something that they can create a stronger, more versatile, more resilient business and create value from the fact that you use sustainability as a perception where you can create innovation. So when we were talking there and we were doing the events and I did a lot of presentations, I did truly some eye openers. And because also the perception is there that they see sustainability as a must-do. It's complex. They have a large threshold, to start and to get going. Well, there's actually a huge amount of low-hanging fruit, and it is. And I mean, I think that is in general worldwide the concept. but there it was really visibly clear. And it made it really interesting. And as soon as you start explaining the circular economy, which in their perception is really seen as recycling, which is actually the lowest value from circular economy. Yeah. And then you start explaining, no, it's not about recycling. It's about, maybe changing your business model and getting up close with your customers and getting into from a transactional interaction to a relational interaction and really looking into your supply chain and see, okay, where is value lost? And how can we harness that value and become innovative and create something better and more sustainable? So, if I talk about sustainability, I'm always talking about the value for business. It always creates more than the sum of parts.
Yep.
And so sustainability is not only about environment, it's also about having healthy finances.
Yep.
Sustainability is also about having a really smooth, lubricated process in your company. Yeah. Sustainability is about enabling and strengthening your people by doing making the right decisions and making the right calls. It's really about creating an open and transparent business where you genuinely, unconditionally seek value, and that means that you kind of have to get off the beaten path.
Do you think it's a generational thing? Did you see that when you were in Australia that there's a difference in the generations in that sense?
Definitely, but I think that's worldwide. If you look at people who are, the true baby boomers, they're used to a hierarchical structure. If you look to the current generation, they are not into hierarchy. No, they're into freedom. And of course, they want to add value and want to be part of something bigger. But they don't have that, I have to listen to him and I have to do specifically that. No, they want a certain freedom of expression and they also want to do that in their work. Yeah. And actually, I think that's perfect because you really see also between the generations a difference between the linear economy, which is really straightforward, compartmentalized, really thinking in silos. Yeah. And then circular economy is really looking over the gate of your own garden. And looking over, stop thinking from a silo perspective. I've seen that within companies that I've worked with when we were doing, for instance, cost reduction programs. So, everybody there's this project. Everybody has to make sure that they find some savings. Yeah. And then the people who are actually working on the products think, okay, if we make this part of the product from plastic instead of metal, then we can save maybe 10 euros per product. And we're talking about the large medical appliances. Yeah. And then if you just do a little bit further research down the road, you find out that the service department is going to go nuts because it's going to mean that part is going to break
all the time.
And it's going to cost them millions in the end. Yeah. So this is also with circular thinking. It's really, being aware that you're a part of something greater and not some sort of small wheel in the great machine. And that allows people and also to feel valorized in their company. Yeah. And then, of course, everybody is replaceable. I am replaceable as well. But as long as you are part of something and you create something, and that might be a part of a big machine, you're adding value and you're changing the way the process is steered.
I think it's super interesting, and I often take my son as the example of this as well. Sorry, Abbe, for mentioning you, but anyway. Yeah. where I he's offered money to buy a new winter coat. Yeah. And his response back is like, yeah, sure, I want to have the money, but I'm not going to buy a new winter coat. It's like, what do you mean? Yeah, because, you're not going to pay me 350 euros for that expensive brand that I want to have. But then he find that brand instead secondhand. And it's like, why do you buy it secondhand? Yeah, because, if I buy it secondhand, I can actually make money of it, selling it again and again.
Yeah.
And I think that's where you start to see that kind of shift in their mentality, because I know we have what they call Plick in Sweden, which is one of those apps. I know you have it in Holland as well, and I think that's where you start to see that kind
Vinted.
of
Vinted. Yeah.
It's that different kind of mentality from the youth, because when he discussed with his friends in school, they're all doing it. So they're sitting and browsing to looking at, okay, where can I buy those summer shoes to a good discount already now, so I can maybe use them for a couple of months before I need my winter shoes, and then I'm going to sell it in May and make a good profit.
And how did he feel about his new coat when he bought it?
Well, actually, when he come home with it, and it was a little bit broken, in the hanger in the back. It's like, yeah, but it's broke. Yeah, but Dad, if you fix that, with a little bit of sewing or stitching, I can actually sell it. I think he bought it for 120 euros. Said, I can sell it for 250 if you just fix the stitching.
Yeah, but that is, I think, so funny. He didn't bought it because he thought it was the most sustainable option.
No.
He bought it because
he's a business guy.
He sees the value.
Yeah.
And this is actually what we should do also from a sustainability perspective.
Exactly.
Always look for the value. Not, okay, you have to do this because otherwise this will happen, or we're all going to die and this and that.
Yeah.
I mean, if you take the fear arguments, nobody wants to move.
No.
It doesn't motivate people. It doesn't make few people happy. No, it actually makes them afraid.
Yeah.
And that actually makes sure that you're not going to be successful if you want to have some real sustainable change.
Yeah.
But as soon as you talk from a value perspective, okay, it could bring you so much more. It could bring you this and it could bring you that. And you have a better looking coat, or a better working laptop, or everything you can think of. Then suddenly it's not the sustainability drive anymore. It's the value drive.
Yeah.
And that's what we really need to learn.
And the interesting, we were having a sandwich before we were sitting here at this table and discussing those things, where some brands brag about that they have gotten this or that certification for things. If we take the jacket as the example, my son doesn't care if it was certified this or that. No. But if it was built in a way that it can actually be used over and over again and can bring him value, the licensing to operate is, of course, to have that maybe certification from the beginning. Yeah. But for the end customer, it has nothing to do with that. No. I often say when I speak to customer, and say, okay, now we are, for example, TCO certified as a brand for Microsoft with Surface. Great that we are, or that we are EPIT Gold certified. You know what it is? It just makes sure that we have a library of documentation and information that the customer or consumer or partner can digest. But it has nothing to do with what the numbers are in those certifications.
No, and that's, again, certification is a minimal requirement to do business.
Yeah.
And then most of that is also a paper business.
Yeah.
And then show, hey, look how fancy I am. I'm in control of my process.
Yeah.
And the proof is in the pudding, of course. And I think you as Microsoft know that as nobody else, because that's why I'm really interesting. So could you kind of explain what is Microsoft currently doing on the sustainability field? Where do you think that Microsoft makes a difference?
I think what we set out then a couple of years ago when we put out those moonshot goals of being carbon negative by 2030, water positive. Let's go back. Carbon negative actually means that we're going to remove more carbon than we actually emit.
Wow, that's ambitious.
That is a moonshot goal, very much.
So okay. Before we go further, I'm kind of okay. I'm. So carbon negative. You guys make computers. You have software that uses energy. You have data centers all over the world. How in hell are you going to be carbon negative? Because that's a bold statement.
Well, they probably had no clue how they were going to get to the moon when they said that, hey, we are going to moon. How the fuck? Yeah. Sorry. Are you going to do that?
Yeah.
We are not sure yet.
Yeah.
But that's also why we invest so much in, for example, carbon removal technology. But it's not only carbon removal technology, it's other things as well.
Yeah.
So fun fact that very few people know of is that Microsoft is actually taxated internally based on how much carbon emission they are adding to the organization.
Oh, that's interesting.
Something that we have actually had in place since 2012.
Wow. But that's sort of like sort of the way how governments try to control
Yep.
carbons with their EU permit system. But you already had that since 2012?
Yeah, so that means...
So how does that actually work?
Yeah, so that means that all parts of Microsoft then needs to know how much emission am I adding to the organization. In the beginning, we only focused on scope 1 and 2, but now that has expanded to scope 3. Scope 3, everything that we can't control ourselves, but is adding to our business. Which means then, of course, that you do need to know your numbers, because you, again, are taxated by the end of the year on how much emissions you added to the organization. The money that we then get from that taxation system...
Internally?
We are then reinvesting. Interesting in this, of course, that since we started this quite a long time, we probably knew or anticipated that something in the world will change, where governments probably will start to taxate you for real on the amount of emission that you're adding as a company. Doing it so early, of course, sets us up as a business as well, because if you have control of your numbers, you probably then also know how much tax are we going to have to pay externally.
But again, that's a hell of a job to do.
Yep.
And that means that there is an administrative process built around it, and that needs to be reliable. So do you have how is that done?
Yeah, so that's why we also started and created what we call the Sustainability Manager, which is that platform that we now actually sell then to customers to be able to do the same thing.
It's an internal platform.
So it was an internal platform.
All right, but you used it for getting control of the administrative process.
Because we can then start to collect all the data that we needed from all the different kind of departments, suppliers, etc. And that is then sold as the commercial platform today as the Sustainability Manager, where you as a company can buy that platform and start to collect all your ESG data or whatever it might be.
But now back to Microsoft, because this is where, that means that a head of department who is responsible for getting in their targets, getting in their budget, their standard financial budget, suddenly gets an extra target, and that could negatively impact the budget of his department. And so is that like 1%, 2%, 5%? How,
I think the tax is now $15 per metric ton.
Right.
I think that was what we stated.
So it's very dependent on which department you're working on.
No. So it is. Again, we need to check the numbers, but let's say I think we said $15. It was raised in 2021, 2 or 3, something like that. But that means that you then internally pay $15 per metric ton. So if you are in a business department that is having a lot of carbon emissions, then again, you need to look at how much emission have my department added to Microsoft. So if you're running a data center, okay, then you need to know if you're selling Surface devices, you need to know how many devices have we sold, what is the carbon emissions that is coming from the devices, and then with a clear goal of then being carbon negative, there's of course a path where they need to see, okay, how are we going to reach carbon negative and at the same time grow our business? And that's where you start to see the shift in also in the design of things, where it's not a paperwork that we need to meet those certifications. It's really then how can we make sure that we, what we call design out carbon emission. Again, with the first phase then of lowering the internal tax, with the benefit for the customer, of course, is then how do we make sure that the thing that you buy from us has the lowest impact possible? So it's really like setting up both our business and the customer business.
So, okay, that means that you have a...
I see your head is spinning now.
Yeah, because I'm thinking of, first of all, I thought, okay, this is kind of a stick system because you have to pay for your carbon emission. But what you also mentioned, as soon as that money is not, that has been paid for the carbon emission is actually used to improve your carbon performance.
So we are reinvesting it in green
Yeah.
green projects, which could be in carbon, it could be other things. So
But could it also be, for instance, if I would be in a department of Microsoft where I have to pay a lot of those taxes, that I can say to the department in which I pay the taxes to, from, hey, could you please help me lower my carbon footprint? Because it takes a huge chunk out of my budget, and I kind of need that budget to evolve and to create greater business value.
Yeah, so what we then use is that you can come up with new innovation ideas,
That's
and
a
you
good
can
idea.
actually then
So that's-
supply, or you can ask for money from that fund to fund the ideas that you have
Wow.
come up for.
That's interesting.
So you then start to come up with a completely new business value from it, because then you're driving research and development and new businesses taken from that pot of money.
Yeah.
So I can give the own example of when I built what we call the surface emissions estimator,
Oh, cool.
which is then a tool that you can use to what is the carbon impact from buying X amount of surface devices. I actually got funded from part of that money.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's actually incremental change.
Yep.
Wow. And so, how many of those, of course, how many projects are funded that way?
I don't know top of my head. I think that we said that we have put aside $1 billion
What?
$1 billion in that
Seriously?
fund.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Wow. So yeah, you kind of also need it, because if you want to be carbon negative, I mean, that was, when do you want to be carbon negative?
By 2030. So yeah, we do have 5 years, and as what we have said in this as well, that we're going to be super transparent about the journey that we are
Otherwise
on.
they don't trust you. We're in the new
No,
age.
but we also acknowledge in the beginning that, okay, Microsoft is not the biggest emitter in the world.
No.
But if we can be transparent about our journey and share the learnings that we have done in this journey, and that is things that we're already doing. So we have shared a white paper around how did we set up the carbon tax.
So it's not greenwashing. It's actually showing
It's
transparent.
actually, because what we're then doing the next one is then we knew that from 2020 to 2023, we went up in carbon emissions quite a bit with all the investments that we do in data centers. Again, doing it in a transparent way, but we also share learnings on now we are going to purchase carbon removal technology. So we share learnings from the RFPs that we send out and making sure that we get quality answers on those RFPs. So again, about sharing the learnings that we take in as the company that we are, with kind of deep pockets.
So, but this is not really, if I perceive Microsoft, for me, it's just a software company.
Yeah.
And they're also doing laptops, and really good ones as well. And they're like up to the price range of Apple. But I don't, as a consumer, I don't directly see Microsoft as something extremely sustainable. Of course, personally, I know you've been investing in this field for a lot of time and been a true forward thinker how to tackle this problem. But it's not something that Microsoft brags about.
No.
So why don't you use that in a commercial advantage?
I don't know, and I think it's a bit like you say as well, that like those certifications, it's our license to actually operate as well.
Yeah.
And if we are going to have that license, we need to make sure that we actually also are creating a better environment around us.
If you want to be successful, successful as a company, you kind of need a planet where you can do it. And if you completely wreck the planet, there's no planet to be successful on. So it's kind of a minimal requirement for your own.
I find it, and now we deviate a bit from devices, but one of the most interesting things that I've seen that we're doing as well is using what we call, or what is called, biomimicry. Do you know what it is?
Yeah. Maybe
Yeah.
So it's just imitating nature.
Yeah.
And looking at all the beautiful, for instance, symbiotic relationships that is between organisms, or smart things that is solved by evolutions in Mother Nature. So that's biomimicry. And then copying that over.
Yeah.
For instance, the Japanese speed train has the same nose as a kingfisher.
Yeah.
Because when the kingfisher hits the water, it perfectly goes around the beak of the kingfisher, and that's just how they pierce through the air. That's biomimicry.
Part of biomimicry is also where we look at how can we become a better neighbor.
Yeah. Cheers.
One of my colleagues often use the beaver as the good example.
Sorry, bee?
Beaver.
Oh, yeah.
Because, the beaver is not seen in nature as the guy who ruins nature around it, right? Because what is the beaver doing? So, it builds that dam, it floods the river. But what it's really doing, it's creating a completely new environment around it. Because all of a sudden there's maybe bees and flowers that never existed around it. So the beaver is all of a sudden seen as a good neighbor.
Yeah, also because of the mineral that is in the river will be deposited in those flooded areas, and therefore...
So what we're seeing then is, or what we try to do is that, how can we make sure that we are the best neighbor around?
Yeah.
In the sense of, if we place a data center somewhere, how can we infuse the nature around that data center instead of ruining it?
Yeah.
A good example of that is in Holland, where we have the data center that was maybe placed on farmland before. All of a sudden, maybe we don't need to use big metal fence around it. Maybe we place form bushes around it. Maybe we create a ditch around it that has water. So all of a sudden we can measure how we have actually impacted the nature around the data center to actually was better than when we actually arrived.
And specifically, if you look at the Netherlands and the fields, are many monocultural kind of ecological systems. So there's not a whole lot of biodiversity going on.
No. So all of a sudden we are actually then actively measuring the biodiversity because that can be done. So then we are looking at how is the water quality actually improved? How has the biodiversity actually improved? How has the quality for people around the data center actually improved? And that's how we see that we can become sort of the best neighbor around that is actually helping the nature. So when we're then expanding...
So that also means that, for instance, on your roof, you're going to have either solar panels or sedum roofs, the green roofs.
Yeah, but that could also be that, hey, we are pouring down water into the soil to make the soil actually more fertile than it was before we moved in. So by that sense, filtering water, making the surrounding around it.
And then also making that fully transparent for everybody to see.
Yeah. So that's interesting then, how we are seeing that we can, by being the best neighbor that move in,
try to integrate it in its surroundings.
No, not just integrate it, actually building a better surrounding than it was before.
Interesting. So again, I mean, a data center is using huge amounts of energy. It dissipates a lot of heat.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of technology you can also use that heat that is created. Is that something that is also integrated in the solution?
Yeah, some of those data centers, I think it's in Finland, where we are then actually putting back heat into the neighborhood around, so it's actually heating houses and things like that. So I think there's a lot of new things that's coming as well. Another thing that we saw in one of the latest data centers in the US, where we start to use wooden floor in the data center instead of a concrete, which is again then showing that we can actually lower the carbon emission quite a lot by changing the building of the data centers.
And wood is a sort of a carbon neutral resource instead of using cement, which is heavily impact on the production of cement, heavily impact on the carbon.
How nature have solved things for thousands of years by creating something that we can actually then utilize inside something. And again, then becoming the better neighbor. Yeah. It's kind of cool, huh?
Yeah. Actually reminds me of a good friend of mine. So he did the same thing. So he almost drowned in Hossegor because his surfboard broke. And, that was, I think, more than 20 years ago. And he learned surfing in Germany, in Melle, which is in the middle of nowhere in a small wave pool. There were like 20-inch waves, or 20 centimeters waves.
It's like learning to surf in the bathtub at home.
Exactly, but he was just super hyper motivated, but because he couldn't get any surfboards, he learned shaping himself.
Oh.
So he did that from getting that foam from the store, the build store.
Yeah.
And then he kind of shaped his own surfboards because he couldn't get any. Anyway, that slowly evolved in something quite good. So he lived in the Netherlands also for a while, becoming a shaper, a really good surfer as well. But eventually got back to the story in Hossegor, where he was really surfing really big waves.
Yeah.
So we're talking about 12-foot offshore pounding.
Yeah.
Not everybody goes in the water in those days, kind of waves, top to bottom. And Hossegor is a scary wave because it's a beach break. It's very deep in front, so it's like top to bottom.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it hurts when you fall on those ones.
Anyway, he was out there with a couple of guys. He got his surfboard broken. He only had the last tailpiece left, and he almost drowned. So I think he was battling for more than an hour to get out. Jesus. And also that shore break is scary. So eventually he got out and completely, destroyed, breathing heavily. So in the evening, he was sitting in the garden of the apartment they were staying.
Yeah.
And he was thinking, okay, how can I prevent this?
Yeah.
And he actually was touching weed in the garden.
Okay.
And then he was looking at the weed, and he saw that the weed is created on certain that it flexes, and it flexes really easily back.
Yeah.
So he's thinking, oh, maybe if I shape a board, I shouldn't just shape it flat, but make small lines in the board, and probably it makes it stronger, and it flexes like the weed does.
Yeah.
And while he was thinking of it, he was thinking, oh, maybe I should also... So you must understand, a surfboard has foam inside and a hard top, which is mostly epoxy or polyester. Yeah. But that's put flat on top. Yeah. And actually, that doesn't make any bonding.
No.
So what's the strongest part of your body? Which is, of course, a bone. And if you look at the structure of a bone, it's hard on the outside, and it has bone marrow on the inside, but it's completely infusulated towards each other. So he thought, what if I can do the outside of the glassing and make it like a bone? And then he started pinched the foam, and then sucking the resin into the foam, and therefore he was really, fixing the resin to the foam.
Smart guy.
And suddenly he had a board which was very difficult to break. Yeah. And that's what kind of sent off his business. And now the funny thing is, so he kept evolving it. Yeah. And now he's actually making cork floor parts as well. Okay. And it's done with some sort of epoxy resin, which is completely biological. It's a fully circular product. And he does not, it's not like a chemical process, it's done by heat. And it feels like some sort of moisture, but it's cork and partly carbon, and it's just pressed together with heat, and it's super, super strong, and you can make floor parts of it. So this opens up, and this is biomimicry. Yeah. So it opened up a huge amount of, and even Volkswagen was interested, Bugatti was interested. So because you could actually make also car parts from doors, which is extremely light. Yeah. Of course, the biggest problem with a car, it's heavy. Yeah. And it's, I think also currently with the current EV cars, it's still a lot of weight that you have to move. Yeah. So as the more weight you can get out, and that you can only do that by using composites. Yeah. But then you have to look at what's happening in the natural world, and suddenly. And not think about, okay, what's the cheapest option to do it, but that's the smartest option to do it. And that brings the biggest value.
And I think that's super interesting because we had I think it was a 1 hour session with one of the persons leading this biomimicry work inside our business. And one of the things that they showed us was a couple of example images, close up in a microscope, and then we had to guess what it was. Mm-hmm. Don't remember if it was we saw a blue picture of some blue color. Yeah. And it was like, what is this? Don't remember if it was from a butterfly, the feathers of a butterfly.
So maybe that's a good question for Anne-Marie to later pop that up in the podcast. Just maybe we'll search it up.
Yeah, so check on the biomimicry.org, I think. Super cool website, by the way. Yeah. I think it's biomimicry.org. All right. When you go in there, you can actually then put in, I'm trying to solve something mechanically, how has nature solved this
how
problem?
cool.
So with this blue picture, it then actually showed how nature has created the color blue, because nature is not using chemicals to create a color.
And it's a difficult color, I think, also to generate.
It's super difficult.
Yeah.
So then it's creating by how it's breaking the lights within the structure
within the
of
feather of the wing of a butterfly. Yeah.
So then it's creating what we perceive as blue,
But it's not blue.
but it's not blue. It's just how it's breaking
up the light.
the light,
And
therefore you
it's
can
like
then,
a prism.
exactly,
Yeah.
and therefore you can then use that kind of, we want to create something blue. Yeah, but we maybe don't need to use chemicals
No,
to create
and no
that.
blue dyes, but just the optical illusion of blue.
So if you have 2 hours of boredness in the afternoon,
That's cool.
go into that website,
Yeah.
think of a few mechanical things, and nature has probably already solved
And
that.
then ask ChatGPT to go on there as well,
Probably.
and then come up with a new
Copilot.
Copilot. Oh yeah, interesting. Copilot. That is Copilot is the AI thing from Microsoft.
Yeah.
All right. First, explain me what exactly Copilot is and does, and how it, But then I'm very interested how it could actually.
How long did we have? 3 days?
Okay, do it in a very short time. But again, could Copilot and AI be helpful to create a more sustainable economical system and business proposition or whatever?
Short answer, of course. The little bit longer answer of what is Copilot, I think it lays very much in the name, where we say that AI is now coming in, but we want to make sure that the humans are in control. So AI is not going to do everything for us, but it's going to do things with us. And that for where we created sort of that name as well. So if you think in the back of your head, it's like, co-pilot is not the pilot that's steering the plane. It's actually the co-pilot that is helping you steer the plane.
That's actually what a lot of people think right now. As AI is coming, and we're going back to the Terminator kind of situation where AI takes over, and we're going to be the slaves of AI.
I think with that, it's like another colleague said, we're probably not going to be replaced by AI, but we're probably going to be replaced by something that knows about AI. I mean, again, back to my son, and last night when he was studying for his physics test that's coming up, and the physics test is about how are atoms built. Jesus, I don't know anything about atoms and neurons and all of those things.
Yeah.
But then it
quarks.
Exactly. But then it turns out that he got the PDF of 4 pages that he needed to study on, and there were a few questions. But then we could take that PDF, we can put it into Copilot, and we could ask Copilot, hey, help my son study this, explain to him those different questions,
in
and
a
give him
concept that he understands.
and then give him 20 new questions, where he could then sit and actually discuss
and test
and say, okay, this is my answer. And he would actually then answer back that, oh no, this is the answer. And he said, yeah, but I don't understand. Okay, but this is how the concept is working. This is how it's broken down.
Sort of your personal teacher.
Yeah, because all of a sudden, I'm not replaced by AI, but I'm helped by using AI.
Mm-hmm.
So tomorrow when he has his physics test, he actually had a super teacher for free for whole night, and he could ask all those stupid questions that he maybe doesn't feel comfortable asking in class.
That's an advantage.
And then when we start to think about those things as well, is of course, if I want to come up with a new sustainable business proposition, I can't call Adult every time I have an idea. I do, but
Test it.
Ask it. Hey, I have a sustainability expert always by my side that I can start to ask those kind of concepts and ideas that I maybe never had before.
What is similar, like rapid prototyping, was also a couple of years ago extremely useful with printers, and you can just print out certain parts or objects and just have a good look at it. that would and also digital twins.
Yeah.
That could help enormously to give you insight. Okay, the whole concept that I'm developing, is it actually working? So, but then now you're going to take it a level further, and you use Copilot as like your super assistant.
Yeah.
But yeah, now I understand why it's called Copilot a lot better.
And I think that's where you then always can feel that, okay, but I have that Copilot next to me if I need it.
So,
if
but
I
is
don't need it.
is Copilot something which is online on the Microsoft website? So how is that integrated into? Is that integrated into the software? How is that integrated?
So it's part of basically now everything that we do, all the kind of different softwares we have, from Copilot in Teams, in PowerPoints, in Outlook, but then also, even cooler, coming into Windows.
Into Windows in your
your
operating system.
So in your operating system, there will be what we call Windows Copilot Runtime, which you then as a software developer can start to utilize Copilot capabilities directly into your applications.
Okay.
Which is then starting to talk to the actual hardware itself. So we can then start to see how we have Copilot coming from the cloud, and then Copilot coming from your machine, and then maybe creating new experiences, things that is a combination of those two.
Wow, interesting.
Super cool things like you can have live translation directly on your Windows machine that is not going to the cloud and doing things. It's actually utilizing a small language model built into Windows. So if you have the latest Copilot Plus PCs that has an AI chip that is powerful, it's actually doing live translation on the device itself.
Okay. So, but I mean, again, that asks for a huge amount of capacity to calculate,
No,
that's how I perceive it.
How you think of it. But the cool thing is that now we have created, or actually the chip manufacturers have created what they call an NPU, or a neural processing unit.
All right.
Which is that kind of dedicated part of a chip to handle new AI workloads.
Okay.
So if we think of that in a sustainability and energy perspective, then all of a sudden we're maybe using a lot less energy.
See, that's my next question.
because we're then using things locally on your machine, and maybe don't have to go to somewhere else to do something. But when we then maybe create the combination of those two, then we get completely new things.
It's some sort of managing the allocations of the algorithms.
Could be.
Sort of.
Could be, yeah.
So the MAA, managing allocation algorithms. But listen, okay, so we're kind of deviating of what I was asking for, because we kind of left off from, reducing carbon footprint, going to the carbon negative.
Yep.
So that's one thing that it's in the sustainability policies of Microsoft.
Policies, goals,
program. So what's the next one, which is important to Microsoft?
Yeah, so we have four of them that we put up. Okay. So the first one was to be carbon negative. Mm-hmm. The other one that is, of course, dear to our hearts is that we're going to be water positive. Okay. We are watermen, which means that we want to put back more water than we actually use as an organization.
So that means clean water, or how should we, you can't make water out of thin air, of course.
No, but that could mean, if we need to use, I'm just making up numbers, 100 million cubic meters of waters in our organization as a total, then we're going to make sure that we put back 120 million cubic meters of water. I'm just making up numbers.
Clean water.
That could be clean water, but it could also be water to make sure that the environment around it is better. Okay. So it doesn't always mean that we're going to put back water in a specific location or region, because maybe some of those locations need more water than others. Yeah. They are sort of in a stressed area.
Yeah. So that means that you should also be very careful of where you're going to harness that water and where you're going to put it back together. Yeah. So that requires a certain water management.
Yeah. The other goal is that we want to be a zero waste organization.
Okay.
Which is a super highly ambitious as well, which means...
That's fully circular.
Yeah. Exactly. And that is then all parts, which means that it's not only, the brown box that we maybe ship our devices
yeah.
in, but it's actually the device
All the parts in the
inside
device. Wow.
that box.
But again, you have a lot of suppliers, and you're sort of the guy who gets all the parts like Lego and then makes a beautiful machine out of it, and that sells that off to a business market or the consumer market.
Yeah.
So that means that you have a really good relationship with your suppliers as well, because that's difficult.
Yeah, but it's also, I think, a shift.
And how you're going to measure that also.
Yeah, but I think it's also, I mean, we can take the good example of now that we have sort of redesigned the Surface devices to be more repairable.
All right.
I mean,
so how's that done?
Back in the days, I like the score that we got from iFixit, where they said the Surface device
website
is
I use as well.
Zero repairable.
But that's similar also with Apple devices.
Yeah.
You can't screw them open. They're all glued. And
So-
that's actually that's really poor. For the
Yeah.
circular
So what we
economy.
did was that we actually then partnered with iFixit a couple of years ago.
Oh, you partnered with the devil for you.
Yep. Where
They're
we
actually quite good.
where we saw, okay, how can we keep the statics of the device, but still make it fully repairable?
Okay.
So with our latest
So repairable for a service provider? What are we talking about?
repairable for anyone.
So if I buy a Microsoft Surface laptop as a consumer,
Yeah.
and after a certain amount of years I want to replace something, or I want, for instance, replace the SSD,
Yeah.
the hard disk,
Yeah.
then I can do that myself.
Yeah. So the cool thing is that
So, but I did this before with Apple devices where you could screw them open, and I always went to a website like iFixit, but those are not official channels from
no.
the manufacturer.
Yeah.
So this is what I probably, if my Microsoft Surface device would happen to this, I would probably go online
Yeah.
and search from some geek who already screwed it open.
Yeah.
So, but this is not a Microsoft person. So how does that work?
So the cool thing that we did was that we are actually then publishing service guides.
Oh, you publish it yourself?
Yeah, so you can actually go to Microsoft Learn and search for service guides. And then we have published service guides for all our devices.
So you get a breakdown like a YouTube video that somebody is screwing it open and you can see how it's done?
Yeah, so we coupled a YouTube video with a PDF document.
Okay.
But the cool thing is as well, when you then look at, okay, I'm going to change the keyboard or I'm going to change the motherboard or something else in that device. When you open that device, they did something really smart.
All right.
They put QR codes inside that device. So when you open it and you scan the QR code, it will actually open up a service guide.
Oh, that's cool.
Where we will actually pop up that film and say, okay, this is how you're going to do it. The even cooler and really smart is that we also put in how many screws is it for that part with a sort of a sticker or a stamp.
So that
but
you don't have one screw left over. It's like, oh, shit. I have one screw left over.
Classic
You
IKEA.
remember, yeah, you remember, you remember that guy who just fixed everything. It's like sitting there with that screw like, shit.
But we also then put in which screwdriver do you need to use.
All right, that's handy.
Yeah, so you then say, okay.
So I have that iFixit toolkit.
Yeah.
Just-
You have?
I have one because, and I replaced stuff and batteries because...
Oh, I'm going to send you a Surface Laptop 7 and then we'll make a next
that would be
webinar
funny.
where we'll see Allard
Yeah.
replacing something in
Yeah.
it and we can time it
Well,
and see how long it takes.
I'm currently in that age that I kind of need glasses. So when I
You
bought
can
it,
borrow mine.
I could still see how the screws were. Now they're so tiny, I just can't see it anymore. I just thought I have to, I have to buy some glasses.
Yeah.
Anyway, but so that means that that is completely facilitated online on how to repair it. So does it impact the warranty or whatsoever?
No, that's the cool thing because everybody else say, as soon as you open something, you break the warranty unless you are a certified technician or you are a...
that's the standard.
Yeah.
You knew that. And the moment and then there's on the screws, there's like blue stuff, and then
a little sticker on it
Yeah.
or a little
they
tape.
can see that it's opened
Yeah.
up. So that doesn't really matter.
No, so what we say, as long as you don't break anything else, it's still fully under warranty.
Okay, what if I use, for instance, an SSD which is not supplied by you?
Well, then you start to deviate from that. Because
Yeah,
I got that question, I think it was a couple of weeks ago when I was in a...
because
in a-
there's
in
going
a-
to be a huge market, just like the car part
Yeah,
market, which
and-
is a
and so-
beautiful example of circular economy, by the way.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
All right.
Where someone asked, but why are your spare parts so expensive? And my question back was that expensive compared to?
Yeah.
Because of course you can
I want to buy my parts on Temu. Just kidding, man. That's the most terrible sustainable solution.
Yeah,
ever.
'cause
it's
the-
not sustainable at all.
No, because that's when you get into that
yeah.
question of, okay,
Yeah.
so if it's important for you that
And
you
you
buy...
sell and you buy it with your data, by the
Yeah,
way.
and you buy that third party, whatever it is, well, we provide the first party spare parts for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
In the sense of we have that control of our supply chain. We had made sure that they have, green electricity are done in all the things that we as a company have set up. And of course, that comes then with a price. So that means, okay, you buy a new motherboard, you know that that motherboard was maybe done in the most sustainable way that we could ever find, versus that, hey, I just want to have the cheapest motherboard that's possible.
So yeah, that's a perfect example of eco design.
Yeah.
And actually motivating your customers, if they want to replace a part, do it our way.
Yeah.
But you have the freedom to do it the way you want it, for instance, when and how. And you're not dependent on a very expensive specialist that can do the same.
Come on side with blue pants and I can do this for you.
Exactly. So that's eco design for you.
Yeah.
You have very ambitious goals. You said carbon positive, carbon negative.
Yep.
Water positive.
Yep.
Zero waste.
Yeah.
But you're measuring it.
Yeah.
So this is something I find very interesting because I've an environmental scientist. I've worked on LCAs.
Yep.
In the beginning part.
You know how hard those things are.
They're horrible in a certain way because you kind of have to average out how the product is used.
Yeah.
And that means that there's going to be a lot of assumptions. And, we've been, when I was doing this during my school days, I mean, that was in 2000, 1999.
Yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday. But I still see those databases around. And, I mean, the world has changed a lot.
Yeah.
So if you do eco design, of course, I assume that you do life cycle analysis as well.
Yeah.
So do you use then? How do you do that? Do you do that with standardized software like Cima Pro or?
Yeah. So interesting work that we have done now the last couple of years as well is that we used an LSA software in the past, and then when we came out with those goals as well, we started to see, okay, we need to be able to measure it in a better way. We need to make sure that we can infuse our own data in that life cycle assessment. Mm-hmm. So we then started to look at, okay, should we build our own life cycle assessment software? Super expensive, kind of difficult. Are there any software makers out there that is doing something that could help us? So what we found was that we teamed up with MakerSite. Mm-hmm. That was then
I really like, again, you go to iFixit, you go to MakerSite.
Go to the smart guys around us.
Yeah, the guys who are already there.
Yeah.
So it's a form of collaboration, which also fits really well with the circular economy. I like it. Yeah. I like it. Okay, please continue.
So MakerSite actually then helped us by creating, or they had state-of-the-art lifecycle assessment tool, because the cool thing was that we can then start to infuse our own data from our supply chain.
All right.
And then when we didn't have enough data or not enough reliable data, then we could use standardized databases that was there. For example, what's it called? Eco, I'm coming up with the word.
EcoScan.
Yeah, there are a few.
Yeah, there's a couple of Eco Indicator and.
I have to look up the one afterwards.
Yeah.
Put the link in.
Yeah.
So anyhow, so what we then did was that we can then start to use what you LCA nerds call primary data, which means that we could go out to our own supply chain and start to demand that we need to have data from you that we can start then to use in our design decisions, but also that we can then start to provide that data to our customers.
Okay, that's interesting.
So what we now have is that we're using somewhere...
So normally it's secondary data because you're using LCA software.
Yeah.
And you guys actually started
Eco-Invent.
working... Yeah, Eco-Invent.
Yeah.
So you're actually now working on primary data out of your own process.
Yeah.
So that means that you did a lot of digging there to understand.
It's a lot of digging and it's a lot of data collections and it takes
seriously.
a lot of time. So
how long has Microsoft been working on this?
I think we started to look at this shift. What was it in 2020, 2021, something like that, where we started to move over to make a site. And what we did was then at one point that we also recalculated old calculations. So we sort of set a
check
new...
if you're still up to date.
Yeah, but also sort of setting a new baseline in that sense.
Yeah.
Because again...
The world is changing.
Yeah, but importantly as well is if you're going to set up a goal, if you don't have a good control of where are we starting off, because maybe that starting off was completely made on wrong assumptions that was not coming from your own supply chain.
Yeah, correct.
How are you going to make sure that you improve over time? And then with our ambitious goal of being carbon negative, you need to be able to say, okay, if we're going to do, as we did now, shift from raw aluminium to circular aluminium or recycled aluminium, well, what is the impact of making exactly that shift?
Yeah.
If you don't have that data from the beginning.
Yeah, but it's the impact through your whole life cycle.
Exactly.
It's not only, okay, you're going to change from virgin material to recycled material. You don't know what the quality of the recycled material is. And does it live up when the product is used? And
that's, of course, one of the challenges that we have when we talk about the quality. Of course, we have a super high quality bar since we want to be the best alternative when it comes to people, use Apple because it's a premium device, and then we are the premium device of the Windows world.
Yeah, but again,
and then making sure that we understand the hotspots of where do we need to invest in our supply chain to lower the carbon emissions along the way. Well, if you don't know your supply chain and don't have numbers from them, how are you going to invest?
So, but this is really interesting. So you've made a decision. Okay, we want to have the most sustainable laptop, or we want to make our laptop more sustainable, and therefore we need to harvest information. This exercise also leads to new insight that brought innovation.
Yeah.
That otherwise would never be there.
No.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, because what it does is then again it's making sure that you then invest in your supply chain as well. Because if we
then you also find stuff you will never be aware of.
Exactly.
If you haven't done it.
I mean, another example of that is that we invested in one of the suppliers for our displays. But when you read the fine print of it, is that, okay, we actually invested in a tier 4 supplier.
Yeah,
that's the supplier of the supplier of the supplier.
Yeah, that's long way down your supply chain.
Yeah, that's how far down we are and looking at, okay, where does it make more sense? Is it to invest in our warehouse and put in solar panels? Or is it to make sure that tier 4 supplier...
So what was the impact that it had for that tier 4 supplier?
Oh, I don't have it directly in my head, but I think it was it 5-10% of the carbon footprint of that device? Wow. Was that coming from shifting that supplier to green electricity?
But it's also making your supply chain a lot stronger, which is also more reliable. And because you do that investments, even in a 4th-tier supplier, they really see what value they bring to the table.
Yeah, and then of course, I mean, if that supplier didn't have the financial muscles to do it, that's when we also co-invest with them. Yeah. And again, then we are building up a supply chain, and again, showing that if we are serious about this...
It's so funny because from a sustainable point of view, you want to perform better.
Yep.
you start looking for the value leakage, which you should always do in a circular economy, and you just strengthen your whole proposition.
Yeah.
But it's not really truly visible straight away.
No.
But it's a sort of the ultimate risk management.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing.
Pick it up.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, talking about risks then, because something popped up.
Oh yeah, you come from the financial world. Risk
Yeah,
management.
yeah. My heart lies with sustainability, but now, I work for a financial company right now, a leasing company. And it's, I think, also an issue for us, but it's an issue which is far away from our beds. It's not an issue that really pops up. So how does rare earth metals, is there a policy within Microsoft? Because I think it's crucial for technology to exist.
Yeah.
So is that taken into account in the Microsoft service?
Of course it is. But I think that we start to see what you know as well when it comes to urban mining.
Yeah, because that's also.
I mean, that's what we then started to see with the shift to recycled aluminium and a few other recyclable earth metals within our devices. And I think that's where we are probably heading into the future as well, where we can start to see how can we harvest the kind of e-waste that is laying around. A good example from the data center world for us as well is that we now start to build up our own circularity centers next to data centers.
Smart.
To start to see how can we make sure that we are again then that zero waste organization, where we have that goal of making sure that we can reuse or repurpose the things coming out from a data center, again, to build that kind of new circular economy around it. Yeah. And I think there's very few of the other big friends out there that's talking about that they are building their own circularity centers to make sure that they create that new kind of business model as well. And of course, that is more focused on data centers today, but it doesn't really prevent us in the future to use it for other things.
Yeah, interesting. So as explained, we're in the leasing and we're in the operational leasing. So for us, keeping our product with us is extremely important, but there comes a moment that we sell the product off as well.
When do you start to see CHG as a mining company?
Well, I'm already kind of pitching that internally.
We cut this part out. It's completely confidential.
No. I mean, I think it's very, everybody knows that the impact to get certain rare earth metals out of the ground is just, devastating for the environment. I think even if we want to be a fully circular economy where our energy is coming from solar panels and from windmills, it's not attainable.
No.
And it's purely because of the metals that we need to pull out of the earth is going to completely devastate our environment. So we have to, we have to come up with smarter ways. Yeah. I'm not saying that windmills or solar panels are bad, but it will not be a solution. No. It has to be we have to be maybe also look more to Mother Nature to see how we can solve this. And I don't have the ideas as well. But looking at, for us, our business model is, of course, surrounded around technology. Yep. And we provide technology to our customers and we give them access. So it's a usage model. Yep. And they don't have to own the device. The owner, we own the devices ourselves. And we provide it to them for a certain amount of time, and they pay us for that. Yeah. What they get in return is a lower price for the device. Yeah. And because it's our business to own the device and to maximize the value which is in the device, we can make it a profitable business. Yeah. This is how it works. And on top of that, we give them full control over the assets which are in use within their organization. And that's where, so we also know where the device is. Our customers, of course, so they manage the devices themselves because otherwise we would have a data issue. But it gives them full control over the devices. And data security is just as important. Yeah. What you see is that organizations who procure the devices themselves, they don't have an asset management in place. No. Yeah. And they start replacing devices after 5 years, and because after 5 years these devices have a very low value, they end up in the cupboard of the company, or they are dismantled in not in the correct manner, with a huge amount for data security risks, but also not maximizing the value which is in there. And this is what we prevent with our model, and also providing a cheaper solution and giving them access to the latest and the greatest. So that's kind of what we do. But again, if we would have issues with rare earth metals, because it's a geopolitical thing.
Yeah.
If China decides tomorrow, okay, you're not going to get the magnets anymore, and then you have an issue.
Yeah.
Or you're not getting gallium anymore, you're going to have an issue. If they put but we're sitting on huge amounts of rare earth metals in all the technology that we own. So I think that urban
You
mining,
are already a mining company.
but again, there it takes huge amounts of energy and a specialization to get those rare earth metals out again. So it's nice to think about. Execution-wise, it's going to be a different story.
But don't you think that there will be new designs and other ways of doing products then going into the future, when we start to see that if we're going to make it easier to harvest this?
Yeah, and again, this is just how our business model works. So we make sure that we harvest all the value that we can get out of those devices. And we can only do that in a usage model, so in an operational lease. So if a customer would do financial lease, they would eventually end up owning the device, and therefore they would still end it up, put it somewhere in a drawer. But figures are about currently companies who procure their own devices, 60% of those devices end up in a drawer.
60%?
Yeah.
How many have bought the company car and just let it be in the garage afterwards?
That's what I mean. I mean, it's like,
it's fascinating.
Yeah, and it's destruction of value. So you must understand that, for instance, Microsoft has put in huge amount of energy, R&D, creativity, intellectual property, investment, happy people. You can't think of all the value that went in there. And then 60% of those devices
end up in a drawer.
Well, that's just, you can't believe it. And that's purely because Microsoft is also, and that's just logical, still in that linear transactional model where you sell off the devices, because you kind of have to pay off your bill of material and the marketing costs and all the people you have going on. So what we do is we tilt that business model. Of course, we will purchase these devices from you, but we just see those devices as very valuable to us. It's
interesting then when we can create a new business model for one of our partners.
And that's where we can find each other, because we already kind of chat about it, where you, for instance, say, okay, in combination with the fact that you can repair your device perfectly, the combination that your carbon footprint is probably one of the lowest on the market right now for creating a laptop. I think it's half what the standard is, because we do those calculations as well. The fact that we could give a feedback loop to you of how this is how the devices are used, would does make this the perfect. So you were talking about upstream supply chain. This is actually downstream supply chain where we are fixed. So this is kind of the gap that you're not filling in yet. That's where we found each other. And it's the moment, the aha moment that you pulled out the service tree is like, look, it's still alive. But this is what we have to probably see if we can do some more and research if we can just make a so because the current laptop,
you know what the best would be then? When you pull out that device and you can see that device has been used by 8 people.
For instance, and it's tracked up. Our asset management allows also to see, okay, there were 8 uses. But what's really interesting is, I mean, if we would allow to maximize the value that Microsoft's put in. So, for instance, currently a laptop, the average laptop, does around 5 years. We've done the research with Vito, which is a Belgium research institute, governmental, I think. So it's research which is trustworthy. And so for us, a laptop is around 5 years. So we're talking about the average laptop from any brand. But we'll also look at it towards a Microsoft Service laptop. But then you said, Wow. We think of our laptops not as a 5-year-old device because we update the drivers
Yeah.
in the parts for 6 years. Isn't correct?
Yes, we announced, I think it was last year, August, that we now have 6 years of driver and firmware support.
Yeah.
I mean, when we present together, I often present that as, I see that as an opportunity of maybe a 3+3 year.
Yeah, and that's and I was like, I was really happy when you said that, and you know why? So a lot of our customers also choose for CHG not only for the convenience, but it's also more sustainable. If you go leasing, you're going to save around 30 to 40% of carbon footprint, depending on what you're leasing. So that could be a smartphone, that could be a laptop, desktop, whatever.
Yeah.
So, and the reason that we lower your carbon footprint by 30 to 40% is because we make sure that's going to be a second life.
Yeah.
Or we do it in a device as a service,
Yeah.
then we own a device until the end of times, then it's even a better performance.
Yeah.
So, but what you see with our current, a lot of our current customers, they think by using the device for a longer time, they're more sustainable.
Yeah, I know.
And I was like, no. I'd rather have the device back after 3 years.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of reasons for that. So reason number one is after 3 years, a battery standardly goes down in performance.
Yeah.
And that's because it reached its thousands charge cycles. So currently we don't have better batteries yet. So after 3 years, if you have a device which on a battery, everybody knows that. You used to get 24 hours battery. You're really happy with your new device.
Yeah.
After 3 years, it
It
goes
starts to
degrade.
Yeah.
So after 6 hours or 8 hours, suddenly you're out of energy,
Yeah.
And it doesn't make you any happy as a user.
No.
And also the device is already 3 years old. It's not up to par. So this is actually the moment that you kind of want to get a new device.
Yeah.
From a laptop perspective.
Yeah.
Smartphones are even shorter. And then a lot of our customers, or in their procurement departments and sustainability departments, says, no, you have to use it for 5 years. So that means that device is going to be in use for 2 years more.
Yeah.
And the user is not going to be really happy.
No.
So you must understand that has a huge negative impact on the productivity of the user.
Yeah.
And you think you do something actually good for the environment, but you're actually taking away value in your organization.
The funny word when you add to that is then, we talk about sustainability as carbon negative and all of those things. But sustainability is also part of how is the business organization, the happiness of the user, because that's a sustainable business.
Yeah. And so that's extremely important.
Yeah.
Another thing is that after 3 years, you should replace the battery. So that means we rather have those devices back.
Yeah.
Replace the battery and give it a second life. And after 3 years, a service laptop is a much wanted device, especially if it's refurbished, because everybody knows, and it's also with Apple devices as well, when it's 3 years old and you have a good battery working in it, it feels and it acts like a new device.
Yeah. We were just discussing batteries, so that's what happened when cameras
funny.
are running out of batteries.
Yeah, perfect. We love this. Change the battery. Just 2 seconds. We'll be back in a moment. So, okay, we'll have a short break, and then we'll come back.
Pick it up.
Yeah, we're back again. Had a small bathroom break and battery replacement.
Well, I got coffee, so I'm fully ready for this.
Good. Now, again, we're talking about batteries, and of course, the devil is in the details. The battery needed to replace from this camera. Batteries. First of all, if you just need to replace a battery after 3 years. So that's one.
Yeah.
Second,
At least now.
Yeah. So, and then we also discussed that it's more interesting to get a device on the refurbished markets after 3 years. Yeah. So that's the second life cycle. What you also see, using the device for a longer period of time is not more sustainable, because we have the data to prove it.
Yeah.
Funny enough.
Yeah.
Because we have asset management, of course, and we get the data.
Yeah.
So when the devices are returned after 3 years, after 4 years, and after 5 years, the quality of the device really drops down. It's more damaged, has more scratches, and also when somebody's not really happy about this device anymore,
they don't really care.
again, and then they start throwing around with it. Now, I'm not saying that, but I mean, they don't take a good care of the device anymore because it doesn't give them the happiness that they used to get from it. So, and we have the data to prove it.
Yeah.
So for us, it's more interesting to have those machines back earlier.
Yeah.
And then it's easier to refurbishment, so that has
Do you know which industry that's really good about this?
No.
The auto industry, the car industry.
Yeah.
Because I mean, what is the first thing that they ask for when you sell the car or when you think about a new car?
And this is so
except for the color, you know.
This is so interesting because ITs are more seen as a consumable and a car. That's cost a lot of money. So
because I mean, that company that just decided that we're going to use those devices for 5 years, they probably don't change the policy of we're going to replace the company cars every 3 years.
No.
Because they know that if we keep them longer than 3 years, they're not going to be worth anything, and the people that are driving them are probably not caring anything at all after those 3 years because it has so many scratches, this and that. So it basically just use them until they fall apart.
Yeah.
I often say that when I speak to customers, what is the absolute easiest way to get into circularity?
Look at the car industry.
No, it's actually asking, is there a second-hand value on the thing that I'm going to buy?
Yeah.
And I mean, it doesn't need to be the car industry, but just asking that question, I mean, back to my son in that sense, if you're looking at, is there a second-hand value to the thing that I'm going to buy? Yes or no?
Mm-hmm.
And then, if there is, what is that value? If there's very little value, well, you probably don't care, and probably those devices or cars or office desk is going to end up somewhere in your storage. But if there is a high value, of course, you're going to make sure that you use that value so you can return it. I mean, the car industry, perfect example. The other one, thank you, Apple, I have to say, even if I work for Microsoft, nobody would take the 3-year-old iPhone and just throw it away or just leave it in the bin.
Correct.
Because they know, okay, it has a high value. If I return it, I will get a chunk of money, and someone else will start to use it again and again and again.
Yeah.
So I think by starting now to educate our customers in that sense as well, that you should use the same kind of thinking as you have when you're buying company cars or lease cars to do the other assets that you're buying.
And this is quite interesting as well because what you see from a procurement department is, okay, we need IT, we need laptops. What are the cheapest laptops you can get?
Yep.
And actually, you're throwing away the most money with the cheap laptops.
Yeah.
Because they don't function properly. They don't allow your employees to get on the latest and the greatest.
No.
And it creates a nuisance even, and therefore you're taking away productivity out of your workforce. But more interesting is, I recall this really good. So within also on when you're sitting in a party at somebody's homes. And they're talking, and they have a new job.
Yeah.
And if in that new job there is an Apple device or a Microsoft device, they always mention it.
Yeah.
And it's
a
really
little
funny.
bit of a bigger smile. And
But
you know, they invested in me. I got this fancy thing, not that other thing.
Yeah, and it's really because it's more expensive and they feel more appreciated. But the funny thing is, in the end, the investment is 10 times better.
Yeah.
Because afterwards, the device has a huge amount of value, even greater if you do it in a smart operational sense of view. But it also...
But the interesting is that if we then looking back to the car industry, you know, you can use those apps to see how many users have this car had, is the mileage okay. Yeah. When do you think that we will start to see the same kind of thing for devices as well? Where you might see that, oh, this device has actually had 8 users before and has this amount of mileage on the battery.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and this is also, you know, I have to recall our conversation earlier that we had on, okay, could we actually make, what is the most sustainable IT solution?
Yeah.
So first of all, put it in, I think, in an operational lease way of view, where you have multiple users in the full life cycle of the product. So that's first of all. But then you said, well, it's quite interesting in the future because Windows is not needed to be on a device. It can be fully out of the cloud. And that means that a device...
It's kind of cool, huh?
Yeah, that means that a device only needs a screen
Yeah.
and a keyboard
Yeah.
and a broadband internet
Yeah.
connection. And then the whole operating system could be
Streamed down.
streamed via your connection.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
But that could possibly add another 3 years to a device. And then we're talking about
least.
those Service 3,
Windows 365, as we call it, and it's kind of a cool where, again, where we're looking at other industries. I mean,
but still have access to the latest and the greatest.
what are you doing in the evenings?
Yeah,
Watching Netflix.
of course.
What did you do 10 years ago? Yeah, well, you were running down the street to check if the latest movie was in,
Yeah.
to see if you could rent
Yeah,
it.
I remember that. Yeah,
take it back.
It was beautiful, yeah.
Do you
Those
really
days.
care where the movie is coming from? No, you don't. You just want to make sure that you have a great experience.
And access.
Will we really care in the future if Windows is locally installed on my device versus coming from somewhere else? No, I don't. I just want to have a great Windows experience.
Yeah, that's it. Build the ecosystem.
What I will care about is, of course, I want to have a nice keyboard because I'm super productive when I sit and type. I do want to have a nice screen so I can see what I'm actually typing. And of course, Allard want me to have a great camera so he can see when we're FaceTiming or when we're Teams
Those
meetings.
should be easily replaceable.
And then those things. And the other thing is, of course, then that we maybe have a battery that we can easily replace by myself when I need it.
Yeah.
The rest of the thing, not really that me as an end user care about that.
Yeah. No.
So I think that's probably where we then start to see. And we just announced at Ignite a couple of weeks ago our latest device, which is called Windows 365 Link, which is basically a black box with the only thing that it's connecting to Windows coming from the cloud.
Wow.
You can't do anything with it. The
No.
only purpose of it is to connect you to the cloud.
So you have your own screen, keyboard,
Yeah,
and mouse, and you're
you can
connected
just-
to the box.
Yeah, and you just can bring that little
Yeah.
box with you if you go on travel, or if I can
Yeah.
take it from the office to my home office. I don't need a home office PC. I just connect that little box to my home network, put in my keyboard and my screen, and I have a full Windows experience from work. But I haven't installed anything at home because it's
and
there.
it's also from a security point of view, brilliant.
Because the cool thing is that there's no data on the device.
No. And you access through your passcode or whatever you use, biometrical kind of thing.
Yeah, but that's what we now also see then with Windows then coming from the cloud. So all of a sudden I can have Windows 10 next year when it goes to end of support. Potentially I could use it for a bit longer time
And
if
then
I make sure that
in
the
surroundings
drivers,
which are safe.
yeah, if I then can get driver support for the device that I'm on, so it's secure, but I can stream down the latest version of Windows, so me as an end user will never care about, is this my local Windows or is it Windows for somewhere else? Well, is the film that you're watching from your own DVD or coming from Netflix? I don't really care.
Yeah. No, that's and then again, if you would, if that is organized in a proper manner throughout, and you add that to the life cycle of a laptop, you suddenly can extend the life cycle of the laptop with a third or even with half.
Yeah.
So even up to 12 years. But I think you have to be serious. Kind of.
But it's
we're getting excited here.
Yeah, but it's interesting because those devices that I saw in your repair shop.
Yeah.
Was 10-year-old devices.
Yeah.
They were just there to being cleaned before they were shipped off to a next customer.
Yeah.
And there we are almost at that 10, 12-year-old device that is actually looking as almost brand new.
And if you then look at the TCO,
that's a completely different thing. But again, then it's not the device that has maybe been at the same customer for 10 years.
Yeah.
Maybe it has been at 5 customers before it's going out. And I think that's where the interesting is. Yeah. But I had a question as well. I saw a great LinkedIn post a little while ago where someone had a really nice quote that got me thinking as well. It said, sustainability has moved from being a mega trend, those mega trends, to be a mega demand.
Yeah.
It's a kind of an interesting statement where I think we start to see it. I mean, we have been in this business for quite some time.
100%.
Do you see that as well? With especially you've been to Australia and meeting a lot of customers.
Now you see it actually in each country. It becomes an important requirement of the deal.
Yeah.
And sometimes it even makes us win deals, and we're not the cheapest then.
No.
And the reason that we win those deals because we actually have that infrastructure in place.
Yeah.
And also companies do realize they take that TCO perception. So that we manage that risk for them.
Yeah.
And another thing is, which is extremely important, is the upcoming legislation.
But you manage not the financial risk only, then the sustainability risk.
Yeah, of course, and that's, I mean, for us, that's the minimal requirement for operation.
Yeah.
So that's our bread and butter.
Yeah.
This is how we harvest the value, and that also translates, of course, in a financial value. So that also translates in profitability.
Yeah.
That's just a part of the business model.
Yeah.
So when we started this business 45 years ago...
Jesus, it's been 45 years?
Yeah, and they were leasing...
Microsoft started 50 years ago almost,
Yeah.
so we're just a little bit older.
Yeah, just a little bit older.
We're middle-aged.
Could be in a relationship.
We're middle-aged, but hey.
Anyway, they were leasing out computers from IBM. And remember, those were just filling this room up.
Yeah,
And-
renting out houses then almost.
Correct. So when a customer was done
Yeah.
and they wanted a new one, that old computer
Jesus, to
came
build
back.
a new house for them.
Of course, but the value was still tremendous.
Yeah.
I mean, now we have the calculating power in an iPhone.
Yeah.
But still,
Yeah.
and this is so it was a natural thing for us to do. And I think that up to 10 years ago, we started realizing, wow, we're sitting actually on a best business model from a circular economy point of view.
Yeah.
If you look at circular business models, then the usage model is actually the best model.
Yeah.
And also it creates the greatest value. So we realized that as a company that suddenly, we're kind of up there.
Yeah.
So then we start realizing, okay, but as soon as you realize that, you're going to take a different perspective.
Yeah.
And then you start looking, okay, where can we improve? Of course, if you look at our company, we're still heavily dependent on a linear economy.
Yeah.
And we try to, manage a circular business model as good as possible. But due to the restriction of a linear economy, because it has all kinds of barriers,
Yeah.
I have written a white paper on that.
Yeah.
And you can't harness the fullest value.
No.
But it takes time. I think, eventually before we stop using the word circular economy and start talking about the regular economy.
Yeah, it's just economy.
It's just economy. I mean, our economical system should be organized as an ecological system.
Yeah.
There is no waste.
Yeah.
Every outcoming of one process should be the input of another. And that's currently why we have...
Coming back to biomimicry, where we almost started.
Exactly. So it makes it more a full circle.
Yeah.
But so again, but it also allows for a lot of improvement yet.
Yeah.
And because 10, 15 years ago, we as CHG realized how valuable it is, and the perception changed. Now also all our business development, innovation, and also, for instance, our asset management systems that we have in-house, and that can even have an API with ServiceNow and all those. So there's a constant development within our company to see, okay, how can we manage that better?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that we're the best ever, so we'll probably have a lot of room for improvement.
Yeah.
But for us, it's just, okay, how can we harness that value?
Yeah.
And it's automatically, it becomes more circular. So that's one, but it also what we provide to our customers for value. So we allow our customers to perform better. And then again, also, there's legislation different, as I said earlier.
Yeah.
In 2025, it's going to be sustainability reporting is going to be in your annual report.
Yeah.
So that means a CFO, a CEO has to sign off on this.
But we also see, I mean, sorry for interrupting, things that coming in France where they start to say that X amount of the devices that you need to purchase
20%.
needs to be
20%.
Yeah, needs
That's
to be
government,
secondhand. Yeah.
Governmental organizations, 20% needs to be refurbished. And
Funny thing is, I wonder if that would apply to cars then as well.
that would
20% of the cars that you buy
need to be
second-hand cars.
No, but it's, I mean, again, that's difficult because for us as well, to manage that second life cycle, all of our devices mostly go to brokers.
Yeah.
And if you as an organization, for instance, have a huge amount of devices that you want to purchase,
Yep.
and 20% of those want to be refurbished,
Yep.
then it's really difficult. You don't have like 20,000 of this specific model
No.
laying on the shelves.
No.
So that requires really, okay, are you allowed to, for instance, take from that brand and this brand and that to get to that figure? So it also creates extra complexity.
I had an interesting discussion again when I was in Oslo last week around those things as well, and of course some of those things comes down to warranty and stuff like that.
Yeah.
How do you think of it when people now start to buy second-hand devices? Do they really care about the 3-year warranty on something that's second-hand?
Not really. I mean, again, if you buy a device and you open it up and within a week it doesn't function anymore, yeah, you kind of want to have a new device again because you lost your
But would
value.
you care if you could self-repair that in an easy way?
Oh, no, not at all. So I regularly buy stuff which has been used, and mainly also from a financial point of view. I never worry about warranty.
I think it's an interesting one because what I mean, what I hear is as well that customers say, yeah, but then you need to start to offer warranty for those second-hand devices, and I think it's like, yeah, but I think probably the requirement from the customer needs to be different for those as well.
I mean, also there you will have a debt on arrival kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's a money-sum
Yeah.
game. You have to calculate, so how many, and just replace those devices.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's, again, a very much a reactive approach.
Yeah.
And I think we, as a society, have to leave that approach and become more proactive. If you want a solution, be part of that solution.
Yeah.
In the small things, you can do it. In the big things, don't, and don't tell others what to do. Just be the example that you want to be.
Yeah.
And don't expect anything else. And this is how I personally feel.
Yeah.
Because you have a lot of people currently also that use sustainability as you have to do this, have to do that. And that also puts a lot of people off. They're not interested in the story.
No.
And they see sustainability actually as something negative.
Yeah.
Which is a complete lost opportunity.
Yeah.
Again, if you do it smartly, from a value perspective, everybody wants to be sustainable.
Yeah.
And believe me, all those companies that are currently seen as targets, like the Shells, and they also realize that the planet is finite.
Yeah.
But one thing for sure, you can't just flip a switch and then come from linear to circular. That's a whole process.
Yeah.
So you better be proactive and be supportive and slowly in getting there.
Yeah.
So that our future generations have that same prosperity that we live off. I mean, the biggest mistake that society has made in the past is making two cycles, or separate us from the biological cycle. So making a purely technical cycle, and that technical cycle doesn't fit in with the biological cycle. So you really have to now separate them. And make sure that it doesn't become more negative, the technical side on the biological side. So they have to kind of coexist. And this is where I see the future. We can't live without the technology anymore.
No. And we also see the technology then as the enabler. I mean, I do have to say that the mission statement that Satya Nadella, our CEO, set out, that we want to empower every person in every organization to achieve more.
Yeah.
That is very much in our DNA, that we want to help and prosper this environment and the people here around us.
And that's beautiful that you say that, because that's typically the circular economy. So a lot of people think, the sustainable, you have to do less.
Yeah.
It's you have to do less because we have to do less this and less harm and less.
Yeah.
Circular economy is about more.
Yeah.
Creating more value.
Yeah.
But do it in a smart,
you
efficient
do it
way.
along the way.
Yeah, and that's similar as in ecological systems. For instance, an apple tree doesn't going to make less apples.
No.
It's going to make too much apples.
Yeah.
And
But
it
then the
hopes,
birds are happy.
yeah, and he hopes that one of those seeds are somewhere, and then a new
Yeah.
apple tree is gone.
Yeah.
Nature is all about more,
Yeah.
and
True.
this is also a circular economy.
Funny, yeah?
It should be more.
Yeah.
So that also shifts your perception. So I don't believe if we become a more sustainable future, you also have to have more value created.
Yeah.
And not less of everything.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very true, huh?
Yeah. So this is, but that's maybe I'm too optimistic.
We are most of the time
Yeah.
kind of too positive guys.
Yeah. But then again, this is how you create something new and how you create value. And again, Rome wasn't built in a day.
No.
Yeah. It takes time.
Yeah.
And it takes a huge amount of resources projected in such a future.
Yeah.
And I think currently, again, if what I see within customers of ours, everybody's really focusing on that.
Yeah.
So how can we harness the value and create more value for society? So everybody's kind of stepping up his game.
Yeah, I think that the interesting that the two of us is seeing, because we are probably meeting those three different departments in that sense to our customers. I mean, we're talking to a lot of the sustainability professionals, but we also, especially you guys, are talking to the financial peoples.
Yeah.
And then me in my job also talk a lot to the IT professionals.
Yeah.
And we start then to bring those three kind of groups together to see how they can actually help each other.
Yeah.
Because it's not, like you said, to only sell the cheapest device or to sell the easiest to manage device, but it's all of those things together.
Yeah. So, Ola, how long have you been in sustainability?
Well, born in Sweden, brought up in nature and living on the sea since I was a kid. I would say that I've most of my life super focused on sustainability.
It's also in your upbringing.
Yeah,
of course.
exactly.
Yeah.
So super focused on sustainability in my professional work.
Yeah.
I would say the last 5 years has been very much more focused on the sustainability part, discussing it much more in depth with customers. Before that, it was more of a general thing, but that also comes with the company that you're working for. We see also the big shift from how sustainability was perceived out anywhere in the world, in the US, in other parts as well, where it was sort of a, like you stated before, a nice thing and maybe a needed thing that we needed to, create some PDFs, some rubber stamps, some things, to something that actually customer is demanding and want to know more about.
Well, I'm asking this question because I've been in sustainability for more than 20 years, 25 years to be precise.
Yeah.
And what I've seen in the shift is just bizarre.
Yeah.
First, sustainability was like, no, thank you.
No.
And
You can talk to the sustainability guy that sits in his home knitted sweater somewhere in the
not
basement.
using deodorant, etc. The perfect. Okay, that's how they were perceived.
Yeah.
Until, all right, we kind of have to.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a nice and extra. It's a nice add-on.
Yeah.
Until okay, now it's getting seriously. What do we need to do to kind of level up our game?
Yeah.
And then up till now, like, okay, how can we harness the value of sustainability for our process? And it's not only done because we believe that the ecological systems need to be perfect and everything. It's also about employee retainment.
Yeah. Yeah.
All those people who work also have children as well. People who they see what's happening.
Yeah.
And they see, okay, now we have to do it different. So the whole...
I mean, you've been just to Australia, as we discussed. I mean, there are companies in Australia that has a really hard time finding people.
Yeah, and it's because people don't... Then the new generation doesn't want to be associated with a company which is a poor sustainability performer.
Yeah.
So there's now the boardroom start to realize, if we ever want to be in business, we better clean up our act.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, if it's not done authentically...
Yeah,
ooh,
that is very true, and I really like what my my former colleague stated, who was one of the founders of the sustainability community inside Microsoft, who said, we have to make sure that sustainability is part of everyone's job.
Yeah.
I often say that as well. It's very few that are lucky like you and me that have it as part of our job description or title.
Yeah.
But if we can make sure that everybody understand what they can do to contribute, and that comes down to that authentic part. Okay, I did a conscious choice of doing this or that. Then everybody feels that, okay, actually it's part of my job too, even though nobody told me that I needed to.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. Okay, listen up. So we have had a great podcast. That's how I personally believe it. Anyway, Anne-Marie, who's sitting right next to us, she took care that we're going to sit here. She organized everything.
Yeah. She gave you a few bullet points. Have you crossed those?
So she probably sits here with a list. So that's but actually, I'm really grateful for her because she made everything happen, and I think it's
me too.
So Anne-Marie, are there anything that we didn't tick off yet?
I think you did an amazing job.
See, we did an amazing job.
But I have a question to you, since
all right.
we need to make sure that this is an ongoing thing, and we spoke about we need to start to invite guests.
I think that's a wonderful idea.
But you already have something in mind. Then who would be your next guest?
Ooh, that's a good question. I thought this was a one thing of.
No. This is the Ola and Allard tour that we start.
Yeah. All right. So maybe depending on what medium this is going to be published, this is a question that we probably
You're going to find
ask.
us all over social media.
Yeah. So now maybe we should ask our listeners. So do you have somebody who should?
That's a good one.
And then sit at the table, and that's going to be three persons sitting at a table.
Yep.
Probably a different location than this. Maybe do it in Amsterdam for a change.
Yeah, that we like.
Yeah, and then see where the next step is going, because I really enjoyed this conversation, Ola.
Yeah, I think it's guests.
Yeah, I think we should. Yeah, we'll come back on that.
Yeah.
Well, probably our listeners come up with a good guess.
I see Anne-Marie in the back is doing thumbs up all over.
Yeah. She's, I think, and maybe also it's interesting if we do deep dives on certain topics. And then we do somebody who's really specialized in that topic and talk around that, because this was very about we were all over the place.
Well, but that's how we are when we meet and we discuss.
Exactly. So no, great. Thank you very much, Ola. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Allard.
Yeah, it was really nice.